the sellsword Chigon butchered his horse, Tyrion Lannister tallied another debt, owed to the Starks. The mare, a gift from his brother Jaime for his 23rd name day, was a casualty of their forced march. Bronn, another sellsword, assured Tyrion that none would go hungry, but Tyrion scoffed, expressing his distaste for eating horse, especially his own. Bronn merely noted the Dothraki's preference for horse meat. Perhaps, Tyrion mused, his mare was the lucky one. Many more cold, hard days lay ahead for him. Turning from the grim scene, his thoughts drifted back to the bitter night at the Crossroads Inn. When they had seized him, Tyrion had restrained his guard, Jick, from drawing his sword, knowing it would only lead to their demise. Lady Catelyn Stark, her hands wounded, paraded her injuries, claiming Tyrion's dagger had caused them during an attack on her son. The inn's patrons, previously jovial, now clamoured for his death. With only Jick and Morrick to defend him, Tyrion, his companion Yoren of the Night's Watch sworn to neutrality, had no choice but to surrender. Catelyn, loudly and repeatedly, declared their intention to take Tyrion to Winterfell for justice. Tyrion, surveying the hostile crowd, observed that the situation was not as dire as it seemed. Of the 50 or so men in the common room, Catelyn had swayed barely a dozen. He announced a rich reward for anyone who reported his capture to his father. Sir Roderick Castle then ordered silence, a command Tyrion struggled not to laugh at, certain the crowd would ignore it. Catelyn sought assistance in conveying Tyrion to Winterfell, gaining several recruits. As they hustled him from the inn, he felt no fear, confident they would never reach their destination. Then, a hood was pulled over his eyes, and they galloped hard through the rain, leaving the inn behind. Dawn broke, and the rain ceased when they finally removed the hood. Tyrion's hope plummeted. They were on the high road to the Eyrie, not the King's Road to Winterfell. Any pursuit would be misdirected, and these were the lands of the late Jon Arryn, whose wife Lysa was a Tully. More galling than the abduction itself was the realization that Lady Catelyn had outmaneuvered him. The hood remained off from that point, and after the second night, his hands were no longer bound. Eventually, they barely guarded him at all. Escape was futile. The terrain was a harsh, wild expanse, the road a mere stony track, and the mountains harboured Shadowcats and dangerous Vale Mountain clans. The clansmen identified themselves by their first name and their fathers, like Con, son of Korat, or Chella, daughter of Chake. Their lives were short and brutal, spent as bandits and outlaws. They were a poor people, their weapons and armour crude, stone axes and wooden clubs. They subsisted by raiding local villages, small groups of travellers, and would even attack the lords of the Eyrie if they lacked sufficient protection. They seized all weapons, grain and armour, and abducted women, married or not. Some women even participated in the raids. However, for centuries, the clansmen had posed no more serious threat to the lowlands of the Vale than these sporadic incursions. During their journey, Tyrion diligently committed the names of his captors to memory, vowing to repay each of them. A Lannister always pays his debts. His particular animosity was reserved for the singer Marillion, whom he blamed for the entire predicament. Marillion, oblivious, was currently searching for rhymes for imp for a song about their adventure. Catelyn, Roderick and several others were discussing the Lannister pursuit when Tyrion interjected, remarking on the slim chance of them being caught. Shadowcats snapped that Catelyn hadn't asked for his opinion, but Catelyn granted Tyrion leave to speak. He explained that any pursuit would head up the neck, not towards the Eyrie. They would find no aid until they reached the Vale, and at their current pace, they would only lose more mounts, further burdening the others. This relentless pace could also easily lead to Tyrion's death, which Catelyn clearly did not desire. Catelyn retorted that Starks were no murderers, to which Tyrion affirmed he was no murderer either. He then asserted his intelligence, stating he would never arm a common footpad with his own blade. For a moment, Tyrion detected a flicker of doubt in Catelyn's eyes, yet she pressed him, asking why Littlefinger would lie. Tyrion replied that lying was Littlefinger's very nature, recalling how the man often boasted of taking Catelyn's maidenhead, a claim Catelyn vehemently denied. She denounced Tyrion as an evil man, but Tyrion countered, calling her a fool and continuing that Littlefinger loved only himself and was interested solely in her for carnal purposes. Curliket pressed a knife to Tyrion's throat, asking permission to bleed him, but Catelyn again told him to let Tyrion speak. Tyrion then asked how Littlefinger claimed to have obtained the dagger. Catelyn explained that Littlefinger had won it from him at the tourney on Prince Joffrey's name day, where the Knight of Flowers had unhorsed Jaime. A lookout's cry interrupted their conversation, signalling approaching riders. Catelyn immediately organized their defense. Tyrion shouted to Catelyn to arm him and his serving men, insisting she would need every available fighter. Both knew the mountain clans, perfectly willing to slaughter each other, would show no mercy to Lannister or Stark alike. Larys slid down the ridge, reporting approximately 25 men, milk snakes or moon brothers. So Willis Woad asked Marillion for help with his breastplate, but the singer froze in fear. Morrock instead sprang to his assistance. Tyrion pleaded again with Catelyn, emphasizing she could not afford to waste men guarding them. At her request, he swore he would lay down his weapons once the fight concluded, and she ordered them armed. Morrock, more skilled with a bow than a sword, armed himself accordingly. Bronn offered Tyrion a double-bladed axe. When Tyrion confessed his inexperience with an axe, Bronn simply told him to pretend he was splitting logs. Tyrion joined Marillion in his hiding place. Marillion whined that he was a singer and wanted no part of the fight, but Tyrion forced his way in. The clansmen boiled into view, armed with a motley assortment of weapons, and led by a towering man in a shadow-skin cloak wielding a greatsword. The knights and sellswords met their charge. As the others roared Winterfell and Harrenhal, Tyrion suppressed an urge to stand and shout Casterly Rock. From his concealment, Tyrion watched Bronn tear through the clansmen, cutting down foes right and left, while Roderick hammered the leader. Marillion shrieked when a rider leaped over them. When the rider turned, Tyrion charged, slashing the horse's neck so that both rider and horse toppled onto Marillion. Tyrion then buried his axe in the man's neck and seized the opportunity to crush Marillion's fingers with his boot. For the remainder of the battle, Tyrion kept to the fringes, darting out to cut at the legs of horses and dispatch wounded men, even taking a helm from one. Tyrion witnessed Jick fall, then stumbled upon Curliket's body and helped himself to the man's dagger. A woman's scream pierced the air. Tyrion moved to aid Lady Catelyn, even as a fleeting thought suggested he should let them have her. Tyrion struck the first man in the knee, and Catelyn killed a second as he reeled from Tyrion's blow. The third man swiftly retreated, and the fighting ceased. As Bronn helped himself to Jick's boots, he asked if this was Tyrion's first fight, which Tyrion confirmed. Bronn then suggested he needed a woman now, nothing like a woman after a man's been bloodied. Glancing at Lady Catelyn, who was dressing Sir Roderick's wound, Tyrion quipped that he was willing if she was. Surveying the fallen clansmen, Tyrion noted their thin, ragged appearance and unimpressive weapons. The leader in the shadowskin cloak, now divested of it, was not nearly as large or terrifying as he had seemed, and his greatsword proved to be notched and poorly made. They'd lost only 3 men, the Bracken men-at-arms Mohor and Curliket, and Tyrion's own man Jick. Tyrion recalled Jick's bareback charge, thinking of him as a fool to the very end. Willis urged a hasty departure before more clansmen arrived, but Catelyn wished to pause and bury the dead. When Willis pointed out the stony soil made graves impossible, Catelyn suggested gathering stones for cairns. Bronn told Catelyn she could do as she liked, but he and Chigan had better things to do than pile rocks, such as breathing. When Roderick concurred with Bronn, an angry Catelyn conceded, and they rode on. Now, there were plenty of horses. As Tyrion mounted Jick's horse, Larys demanded the dirk Tyrion had taken from Curliket's body, but Catelyn intervened, telling them to give him back his axe as well. Tyrion was pleased to learn that Marillion the singer had broken several ribs, 4 fingers, and lost his harp. He was less pleased to discover Marillion had also acquired the magnificent shadowskin cloak. The singer, for once, had nothing to say, and Tyrion saw him cringe when they heard Shadowcats fighting over the bodies they had left behind. Tyrion trotted up to the singer, taunting that Craven rhymed nicely with raven. Then he rode alongside Lady Catelyn. Picking up their earlier conversation, Tyrion pointed out a serious flaw in Littlefinger's story. He never bets against his family.